Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. This old man with red hair was named Gong Changlong, and he was the person in charge of this great beast dueling arena. He had a high status inside Shrek Academy, and his research regarding soul beasts was very thorough. Even Du Weiluan had to be polite to someone like him. Something like that happened. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. No matter what kind of natural talent he has, or how many heavenly treasures he relies on, it's impossible for a 12-year-old to assimilate a 100,000-year soul ring. Which boy did you say it was? Call him and bring him here. I need to take a look at him. Gong Changlong was a hot-tempered guy, and he immediately started shouting out loud. Somewhat embarrassed, Du Weiluan said, "Old Gong, we're in the middle of the final test. I was wondering if you could wait for the test to be over." To Gong Changlong interrupted him with ill humor and said, "Test, my ass. Were you even listening to me? All the soul beasts under 10,000 years old shat themselves from fright, and all those under 1,000 years shared the same fate. How exactly are you planning to continue your test? These soul beasts need at least 2 or 3 days of rest to recover. Do you have any idea how long it will take for my men to clean up this awful stench? It was so difficult for us to train them to not shit wherever they wanted to, but now, all our efforts have been wasted." Even Du Weiluan hadn't expected things to become serious to this degree. Right now, they were unable to continue the final test. This seemingly unimportant affair would actually have an impact on the students' studies. "Fine, old Gong. I'll give everyone a short explanation. Wait a moment." Du Weiluan turned around and arrived near the students of the two classes. After pausing for a moment, he said, "Due to certain circumstances, today's final test will be suspended. The teachers will now bring the students back to their classrooms to take lessons." Juyi quickly asked, "Chairman Du, what about Hu Yuhao's test?" Du Weiluan frowned and said, "Let's say that he passed. Hu Yuhao, come with me." After finishing his sentence, he turned and returned to Old Gong. However, Hu Yuhao didn't immediately follow behind him. Instead, he went toward the front of class 2, looked coldly toward Dai Huabin and said, "Remember to wait for me outside. If I'm not mistaken, according to our bet, the one with the highest score will be the winner. You've lost. I'll be waiting for you to kowtow and admit that you were wrong." For a moment, Dai Huabin felt as though there was a mouthful of air stuck in his chest. His throat tasted sweet, and with a "wa," he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He was simply too competitive. However, the more competitive one was, the harder it would be for one to bear losses or humiliation. Zhulu let out an astonished cry, and hurriedly rushed over to support him only to be roughly shoved aside by Dai Huabin. Traces of blood had already appeared in his eyes as he glared fiercely at Hu Yuhao, who had already left alongside Du Weiluan. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees and shouted out loud, "I was wrong." As he said this, he fiercely smashed his head into the ground. Then, he stood up and ran away. Hu Yuhao paused his footsteps when he heard Dai Huabin's loud voice. His gaze was somewhat dazed, but his nose ached. "Mom, did you hear that?" Dai Huabin admitted he was wrong. "He's the son of that man and that woman. And this is just the beginning. I will definitely make them pay for the 11 years they made you suffer." Hu Yuhao didn't turn back to look at Dai Huabin. After pausing for a brief moment, he strode forward and continued following Du Weiluan to meet with Gong Changlong. Dai Huabin crawled to his feet and ran away immediately while Zhulu and Kui Ji hurriedly chased after him. Hu Yuhao's target was only Dai Huabin, so naturally Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao wouldn't go over to trouble the two girls. This time, not only had they won, but they had done so by using an inconceivable method that had astonished the entire audience. Du Weiluan walked over to Gong Changlong with Hu Yuhao in tow. "Elder Gong, I've brought the person over. Look," even though it was currently the middle of the day, and there was still ample sunlight. When Hu Yuhao raised his hands to block Gong Changlong's palm, the nearby teachers could clearly see that his palms were flickering with a dazzling light, almost as if he was wearing a pair of diamond gloves. At the same time, all of them suddenly felt an intense chill spread through them. The arrival of this chilliness was not only sudden, but also ferocious. it was so powerful that it seemed to have the ability to pierce into one's bones. This dense cold aura even caused someone of Du Weiluan's cultivation to instinctively shiver. The three palms connected and Gong Changlong's right palm suddenly turned fiery red, as if it was a burning hot piece of coal. A shi-shi sound rang out the instant he collided with Hu Yuhao's palms. Large billowing waves of white mist burst forth from the point where the two collided, so much so that their entire bodies were hidden within the mist. The clash caused Hu Yuhao to retreat a few steps before falling onto the ground with a thump. Although his butt had landed on the ground and he had a somewhat astonished expression on his face. His appearance clearly showed that he hadn't suffered any injuries. Gong Changlong's astonished face was clearly seen once the white mist has dispersed. "What a good brat," he said. "You possess the ultimate ice attribute, which allowed your martial soul to suppress this old man's. What bothers me, however, is how a one-ringed soul master like you possesses soul power comparable to that of a rank 20 soul grandmaster. Also, where's the 100,000-year soul ring you were supposed to have?" No one saw this, but despite dispersing rapidly, an icy mist still lingered about the right hand he hid behind his back. Hu Yuhao stood up. He naturally understood that this elder was only trying to test his cultivation. He replied respectfully, "Teacher, I don't have a 100,000-year soul ring. That was only a special soul skill of mine. As for my soul power being above rank 20, that is because I have 2 martial souls. My first martial soul has 2 soul rings. Earlier, I sensed that you had a fire attribute martial soul, and since it just so happens that my second martial soul is an ice attributed one, I decided to use it in the hope that I'd be able to retaliate better." Du Weiluan was already widening his eyes when Hu Yuhao revealed his ice-type martial soul. Especially after he saw that singular white soul ring appear. Upon also hearing Hu Yuhao personally say that he had twin martial souls, he felt everything in front of him go black. Depression took him over, and he nearly spat out blood like Dai Huabin. Hu Yuhao said, "Yes. Thanks to a fortunate encounter, I obtained a torso bone." Du Weiluan felt like he was going to go blind. Everything in front of him was going dark again. A torso bone. They'd only had a 1-month holiday, but he went and got himself a torso bone. Since when were torso bones this inexpensive? Didn't he say that he was an orphan? The Soul Tool Department, it must have been them. The Soul Tool Department actually invested so much in him. Wait, Gong Changlong praised the skill that came from that 10-year soul ring of his. Du Weiluan couldn't hold in his curiosity anymore. "Hu Yuhao, just what in the world happened to you? Just what soul skill did you use earlier to make all the soul beasts within the beast dueling arena go limp from fright? Don't you know how hard it is to train these soul beasts? Either you tell us what happened, or you'll have to compensate us for our loss." Gong Changlong's face sank. "Little Du, what are you doing? He's just a kid, and an outstanding student on top of that. You're called Hu Yuhao, right? Tell me, this old man is also very curious about you." In such a situation, Hu Yuhao naturally wouldn't try to conceal anything. He replied obediently, "My first martial soul is my spirit eyes, and its second soul ring gives me a skill called imitation. This imitation skill can let me change the shape of my body to imitate various things, and can fake the age of my soul rings as well. Earlier, I made both my soul rings imitate the shape and aura of 100,000-year soul rings. However, I wasn't able to fully imitate their auras due to my lacking cultivation. Otherwise, its effects would have been even better." After hearing Hu Yuhao's explanation, Du Weiluan and Gong Changlong suddenly understood everything. Gong Changlong couldn't help but reveal a strange light in his eyes. Good, this is an interesting soul skill. This imitation is really good. If you had this skill in the Great Star Do Forest, you would have been able to avoid a large number of conflicts. This would then be extremely useful when you're hunting soul beasts. This old man's called Gong Changlong, also known as the Beast King. I have another question for you. What's your second martial soul? I know that it's advisable for you twin soul masters to keep your second martial a secret, and so this old man won't expect you to reveal your secret for free. How about this? I'll promise to do everything in my power to help you obtain a soul ring in the future, if you're willing to tell me about your second martial soul. Do we have a deal?" Hu Yuhao was overjoyed. A spiritual type soul beast was simply too rare, and this teacher was evidently in charge of the great beast dueling arena. His assistance would undoubtedly save Hu Yuhao a lot of time and effort. He nodded hurriedly and replied respectfully, "Teacher Gong, I'm willing to tell you about my second martial soul." Du Weiluan and the other teachers by the side all had curious expressions on their faces, but Hu Yuhao clearly wasn't planning to satisfy their curious minds. A golden light flickered through his eyes as he immediately activated his spiritual detection. A three-dimensional image of the surrounding 100 meters immediately appeared in Gong Changlong's brain, and then image quickly focused on Hu Yuhao's back. It entered his shirt, and the tattoo on his back appeared fully in Gong Changlong's mind. Hu Yuhao said obediently, "Teacher Gong, Director Du, if there's nothing more to say, I'll be going back first." Gong Changlong nodded, "You can go back. If you have any spare time in the future, you can come over here and play for a bit. However, I'm forbidding you from imitating 100,000-year soul ring here. Otherwise, I'm going to make you go and clean up the beast cages." Hu Yuhao smiled mischievously and ran off. Du Weiluan didn't stop him. What good would stopping him do? He was already a core disciple of the Soul Tool department. The current director, Du, only felt everything in front of his eyes going black. Even in his wildest dreams, he'd never thought that he'd let the Soul Tool department pick up such a good deal. Furthermore, this was something that he and the dean had forsaken. In reality, Du Weiluan couldn't really be blamed. Hu Yuhao's previous performances had simply been nothing spectacular. However, his trip to the extreme north had caused his strength to experience a qualitative leap. After bidding farewell to Gong Changlong, Du Weiluan left hurriedly. The advancement test of the second-year students hadn't gone smoothly, and he had to go back and rearrange it. At the same time, he had to report the day's events to Yang Xiaozhe. After Hu Yuhao walked out of the Great Beast dueling arena, he was instantly surrounded by a large number of students. "Boss Hu, explain yourself clearly. Just what in the world happened with that 100,000-year soul ring of yours?" Lan Susu called out, standing by the side. "Yeah. Boss Hu, you have to compensate me for my trousers. I almost pissed myself because of you." Ju Sikhen stood by the side, fanning the flames. Immediately, he caused his fellow students to erupt into laughter. "Then you didn't piss in the end, right? If you take a piss in front of everyone here, I'll pay you back." Hu Yuhao said unhappily. Ju Sikhen was immediately forced to shut up. Hu Yuhao spoke in a loud voice. "I'm sure that everyone can guess that those 100,000-year soul rings of mine were definitely fake. I can only say that it's a new soul skill I've obtained that doesn't have any other practical uses. I won't talk about any further details. Let me keep a few secrets." The advancement test had just started and wouldn't just end due to such a matter. Just as Hu Yuhao and the other students were returning to their classes in a lively manner, Dai Huabin stood in a shadowy corner not far away from them. As he wiped away the bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, a cruel light appeared in his eyes. "Huabin, are you okay?" Zhu Lu asked worriedly. Dai Huabin replied coldly, "Help me request Teacher Mu for a leave of absence. I'm going out for a bit." "What are you going to do?" "Mind your own business," Dai Huabin said coldly. With that, he turned away and left. After a short discussion, Wang Yang and Zhu Yi called Hu Yuhao over to ask him a few questions. Afterwards, they finally began their afternoon class. However, Hu Yuhao didn't return to his seat. Instead, he was told go to and stand on a nearby platform. Then, Zhu Yi was called over by the teachers of the teaching department. As Director Du Weiluan was holding a meeting, due to special circumstances, the advancement test will be delayed for 2 to 3 days, Wang Yang told the students of Class 1. This will give you a bit more time to train. Today, you all saw the battle between Yuhao and the Wind Spirit Wolf. Soul beasts are not affected by emotions, and the first thing you need to do to fight them is maintain your composure. You must display everything you've learned. Hu Yuhao nodded, and a golden light flickered in his eyes. At the same time, 2 white soul rings slowly emerged from under his feet. They seemed to be 10-year soul rings. Just now, when Wang Yang had pulled him aside to ask him a few questions, it was about this, whether he was willing to use this method to help the other students. Hu Yuhao had already briefly explained how his soul skill worked. Otherwise, Wang Yang wouldn't have asked him something like this. Hu Yuhao didn't hesitate, and immediately complied. He was the class leader, after all. Thus, he was willing to help his fellow classmates. Moreover, at this point, he was unable to conceal his imitation skill. Thus, there was no need to hold back. He had managed to scare many soul beasts to death by relying on the Skydream Iceworm's instructions. In addition, this had allowed Hu Yuhao to experience some of the myriad possible variations of this skill. These white 10-year soul rings weren't going to have a great effect on the nearby students. Their color quickly changed from white to yellow. Looking at the soul rings that had suddenly changed color, the students of Class 1 were astonished. This skill was really mysterious. It really could change the color of Hu Yuhao's soul rings at will. Wang Yang said in grave tone, "The white color represents a 10-year soul ring. It's the lowest ranked soul ring that we soul masters confuse with. The yellow color represents a 100-year soul ring. The color of a soul ring will change according to its age. Do you know why that is? Because there is a great amount of energy compressed inside it. And every soul skill will use this energy in a different way. Therefore, it's not a given that a lower rank soul ring will definitely have a bad effect." The yellow soul rings then changed into purple ones. As these purple 1,000-year soul rings each made their appearance, Hu Yuhao's body started to emit an invisible pressure, making the Class 1 students somewhat nervous. After all, the only one that was known to possess a 1,000-year soul ring in the class was Wang Dong. "Everyone, be careful," Hu Yuhao said loudly. The 2,000-year soul rings on his body transformed once again, the purple color suddenly becoming darker, until it slowly changed to black. Immediately, the students with a weak cultivation base felt their soul rings come out of their bodies. Even their appearances became pale. Wang Yang furrowed his brows as he told Hu Yuhao, "No need to increase the output further. Just keep this level of intensity." He had the feeling that all these students would wet themselves if Hu Yuhao were to release the power of a 100,000-year soul ring in this small and narrow place. And he absolutely didn't want that. Keeping the level of intensity at 10,000 years was the best thing for the students. After cultivating for 10,000 years, soul beasts will experience a qualitative leap. Generally speaking, if a human being wants to deal with a 10,000-year soul beast alone, he will need the strength of at least 6 rings. If he wants to deal with a 30,000-year soul beast, he will need the strength of 7 or more rings, and even then it would only be something he could try after obtaining a martial soul true body. Earlier, I said that soul masters would generally be stronger than soul beasts of the same rank. However, in the history of our Doluo continent, there is only one instance of the strongest soul master surpassing the strongest soul beast. That happened when the first generation of Shrek's 7 monsters was still around. The best example among them is exactly the founder of the Tang sect, the Azura Tang San. Except for that period of time where our human race was stronger than the soul beasts, we have always been unable to contend with the strongest soul beasts. As for soul beasts that have cultivated for 100,000 years, even a titled Doluo would find it hard to fight against them alone. That's because soul beasts who are able to cultivate for 100,000 years will definitely have a powerful inherited bloodline. And to suppress a 100,000-year soul beast, one will need to be at least a titled Doluo of the 95th rank, or possess a sufficient number of soul bones. A tide of soul beasts once emerged from the Great Star Do Forest, attacking our Shrek Academy. That time, the Academy suffered severe losses. Inside the Great Star Do Forest were some soul beasts, who had even exceeded the 100,000-year rank. The 100,000-year rank isn't actually the limit for soul beasts. There are some soul beasts that are particularly gifted by the heavens, and by relying on their cultivation, they can break through the limit of the 100,000-year rank, reaching a completely new realm. These soul beasts that can surpass the 100,000-year rank are called transcendent soul beasts. I can guarantee you that the Great Star Do Forest still hides some transcendent soul beasts. For us soul masters, a 100,000-year soul beast is a first-class treasure. Exactly. A titled Doluo already had 9 rings. They were existences of the highest level. How could they have another soul ring? Wang Yang said with faint smile, "You finally understand your mistake. If you do your best and manage to resist this fear inside your hearts, teacher will tell you a secret. This secret is about the top-ranked soul ring." The students were attracted by Wang Yang's words, and the fear inside their hearts diminished a bit. The students that had already released their martial souls also made an effort to withdraw them. Wang Yang said in a grave tone, "What Zhu Sikhen said just now was against common sense. However, I'll tell you this, in the history of our Doluo continent, it's not like there haven't been soul masters with 10 rings. This secret piece of information was recorded in our Shrek Academy. 10 ring." After hearing those words, all the students were shocked. The fear in their hearts was also reduced a little more. Wang Yang said, "The main subjects of my research are martial souls and soul rings. After doing a lot of research, I can guarantee you that it is possible to have 10 rings, and having 10 soul rings almost equates to becoming a god. In the records of our academy, there was some information about a person possessing 10 soul rings, a god-ranked powerhouse. And this person is exactly the one I mentioned a while ago, the founder of the Tang sect, ancestor Tang San. Among his twin martial souls, his main martial soul, the Blue-Silver Emperor, possessed 10 soul rings. Researchers from later generations decided to call it a god-rank soul ring." Wang Yang replied, "Even I don't truly know. Based on historical documents, the 9th soul ring of ancestor Tang San's Blue-Silver Emperor was bluish gold. His second martial soul, the Clear Sky Hammer, also had a different colored 9th soul ring, it was dark gold. It's very possible that it was also a god-rank soul ring. Based on this, we can deduce that god-rank soul rings will all have different, unique appearances." Wang Dong asked, "Didn't you just say that one's 10th soul ring would be a god-ranked one? How was ancestor Tang San's 9th soul ring able to become a god-ranked one?" Wang Yang smiled slightly. "We'll first have to talk about a legendary soul beast that once existed on our Doluo continent. Even among the teachers within the academy, only a few of them know about this secret. This legendary soul beast was known as the Deep-Sea Devil Whale Emperor, and its cultivation had supposedly neared the million-year rank. However, nobody is clear as to whether or not it actually surpassed 1,000,000 years of cultivation. According to our historical documents, however, once ancestor Tang San absorbed its soul ring, it fused with some sort of energy in his body, which caused it to become a dark gold god-ranked soul ring. Ancestor Tang San had already broken through the pinnacle of cultivation at this point, meaning that his soul power had reached rank 100 and that he'd become a god. Only with the help of his main martial soul's 10th soul ring, the Blue-Silver Emperor, was he able to kill the Deep-Sea Devil Whale Emperor. When Wang Yang finished speaking about ancestor Tang San's god-rank soul ring, Hu Yuhao was left in a daze. After hearing about the possibility of a million-year soul beast who might have appeared in the past, he was stunned speechless. At that moment, he couldn't help but ask, "Teacher Wang, did the Deep-Sea Devil Whale Emperor really reach 1,000,000 years of cultivation?" Yu Hao shook his head. "There shouldn't have been any more. When ancestor Tang San had his last battle with the Martial Soul Hall, the two opponents he faced were both god-ranked experts. According to the historical documents at least, a situation in which ancestor Tang San possessed 3 martial souls didn't appear." "Yu Hao, why would you ask something like this?" Hu Yuhao scratched his head. "I was just casually asking something random. The god rank is simply too far away from us, thus I was just wondering whether or not we'd obtain a 3rd martial soul if we reached the god rank." Wang Yang smiled slightly. "Your train of thought is very good. Our research into the field of martial souls is precisely because we want to explore more of their secrets. One should definitely make bold hypotheses and verify them carefully. Alright, let's stop for now." His last sentence was directed towards Hu Yuhao. The other students instantly felt their bodies loosen up, which immediately causing the soul power in their bodies to undulate intensely, and in turn caused them to feel an incredible sense of relaxation. Only then did they recall the pressure that Hu Yuhao had been releasing since he'd imitated the aura of a 10,000-year soul ring. At this moment, there was still a period of time before dinner time. As such, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong decided to head directly towards their dorm. At Hu Yuhao's strong behest, they began to cultivating as soon as they arrived. Hu Yuhao wasn't truly trying to be hardworking today, however, he had a few questions for the Sky Dream Iceworm. The only way he could have a conversation with the Sky Dream Iceworm currently was by entering a state of cultivation with Wang Dong and calming down. As the Howding power circulated through their bodies, the dense undulations of soul power they emitted strengthened at a rapid rate. Both of them had experienced a qualitative leap in their cultivations during their vacation, thus the advantage they had in terms of cultivation speed since they'd fused their soul power was becoming more and more distinct. Brother Skydream, Brother Skydream. Once he'd entered a meditative state, Hui Yuhao immediately began to circulate his soul power in a controlled manner while calling out to the Skydream Iceworm. The Skydream Iceworm responded to him quite quickly. Its lazy voice rang out, "What are you doing? Is this about that deep-sea devil whale emperor?" Hui Yuhao said, "Yeah. Brother Skydream, was that deep-sea devil whale emperor really a million-year soul beast?" The Skydream Iceworm smiled mischievously. "Don't you already have an answer to this?" Yes, the reason that Hui Yuhao had asked Wang Yang if ancestor Tang San had had a third martial soul was precisely to verify whether or not the deep-sea devil whale emperor was a million-year soul ring. Hui Yuhao said, "Since you've answered me like this, it truly wasn't one." The Skydream Iceworm replied, "I've already told you. I'm the only soul beast on the continent who's been able to break through to the million-year rank. The moment I broke through the boundary of the million-year rank, I felt something deep in my heart. It's impossible to describe what that feeling was, but I instinctively knew that I was the first soul beast to reach this level." Hui Yuhao replied, "Brother Skydream, don't go back to sleep yet. I still have another question to ask you. Earlier today, I used one of the soul skills that the Ice Empress gave me. Why was I suddenly so enormously powerful?" After having a conversation with the Skydream Iceworm, the doubts in Hui Yuhao's mind had cleared up. Having gone through today's affairs, his self-confidence had increased even more. News of Hui Yuhao's stunning performance in the Great Beast dueling arena quickly spread throughout the entirety of the outer courtyard. However, under the conjectures of a few brainy people, the other students were able to surmise that he had used an aura imitation skill. Because of that, he didn't cause too large a ruckus. The advancement test for the Year 2 students was postponed for 2 days. Furthermore, Juyi brought another piece of news to Hui Yuhao after the meeting the teachers had. "Second young master, this is too risky. Shrek Academy is the continent's #1 academy, and experts are extremely common there. The number of titled Dolour they have exceed that of our empire. Rashly killing someone within Shrek Academy will be extremely inconvenient for the Duke. Then what if it's outside Shrek Academy? If it's sufficiently far away from Shrek Academy, we can try. Second young master, you have to calm down. If you really can't take it anymore, you can ask the eldest young master for guidance." "No need, I've already thought it through. I was clouded by my anger. I'll think of a way by myself first. If I really can't do anything about it, I'll draw them out for the sake of the White Tiger Duke's honor. At that time, you are not allowed to dissuade me anymore." Yes. 2 days later, the Great Beast dueling arena. Outside the arena, Hui Yuhao, do you dare to make another bet? Dai Huabin blocked Hui Yuhao and Wang Dong's paths. Without even waiting for Hui Yuhao to open his mouth, Wang Dong interjected, "What? You can't accept it. The only reason why you've dared to come again is because you're fully aware that Hui Yuhao's been restricted from using his soul skill. Losing is losing, and you've already forgotten the pain that came from that scar of yours, eh? You've already kowtowed and admitted that you were wrong." A cold light flickered through Dai Huabin's eyes. "What's wrong with seizing an opportunity? I lost, and I admitted it. I'm only asking as to whether you dare to make another bet with me. This time, I'll bet against you two by myself. I'm betting that I'll be able to exceed the total of your scores by myself." The moment he spoke, Wang Dong immediately raised his brow. "Dai Huabin, you're being too arrogant." Dai Huabin said icily, "Do you dare, or do you not?" Wang Dong said angrily, "Since you wanna bet, we'll bet. We'll use the same stakes as before. The losing party will kowtow and admit that they were wrong, but 3 times this time." Dai Huabin turned towards the silent Hui Yuhao. "What do you say?" Hui Yuhao said indifferently, "Seeing that you were willing to accept your loss last time, fine. We'll take your bet." Dai Huabin squinted his eyes. After coldly sweeping his gaze over the two, he turned away and left. When Hui Yuhao had entered Shrek Academy at the very beginning, he had only been at rank 13. 1 year later, he was now rank 26. It could be said that within the entire academy, Hui Yuhao's leap in power was something that the other students were completely unable to compare with. Soul power couldn't be measured using simple numbers. If the soul power needed to bring someone up from rank 0 to rank 13 was considered 1 unit, then the soul power needed to bring someone from rank 13 to rank 26 was at least 5 units. In other words, Hu Yuhao's soul power had quintupled within a year. This was completely inconceivable. Even among the students of Class 1, his current soul power placed him in the top 10 of the class. However, only Wang Dong knew about this secret. Moreover, Wang Dong himself had secrets. Furthermore, it wasn't just limited to a single secret. As the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, Yang Xiaozhe had an esteemed status. If he was willing to hold a post in any country, he would definitely receive the treatment of a state advisor. However, Yang Xiaozhe had always remained within Shrek Academy. The thing he enjoyed most was seeing many outstanding geniuses being nurtured by himself, making Shrek Academy even more powerful. From the other's point of view, a single student wasn't worth him appearing in person. From Yang Xiaozhe's point of view, however, this was extremely worth it. This was an extremely rarely seen twin-souled soul master. Not only had he come, he had arrived extremely early. Before the advancement test had begun, he had found the Beast King Gong Changlong, and had a simple conversation with him for a period of time. Though Gong Changlong hadn't revealed what Hu Yuhao's martial soul was, he said the word ultimate to Yang Xiaozhe. This word solidified Yang Xiaozhe's confidence even more. A series of plans had already formed in his heart. Seeing the students who had already entered the arena, a faint smile appeared on the corner of Dean Yang Xiaozhe's mouth. Qian Duo Duo, Qian Duo Duo. I want to see which of the two of us will have the last laugh. Year 2, Class 1. Wang Dong. Wang Dong strode forward and handed his test form to the referee. That's right. This time Wang Dong was the first to take the field instead of Hu Yuhao. However, the other students had all expected this sort of change. After all, Hu Yuhao had previously used his special soul skill to intimidate the soul beast, not harm it. This time around, his soul skill had been restricted. Thus, he naturally couldn't be Class 1's opening act. Class 1 needed an opening that would stun their opponents. Dai Huabin, who wasn't even 13 years old, had long since seen bloodshed. There was already a merciless look in his eyes. I choose 1,000-year soul beast. Wang Dong's voice drew Dai Huabin out of his reverie. He couldn't help but be taken aback when he heard Wang Dong's selection. Despite his 1,000-year soul skill, Wang Dong's cultivation was only that of a soul grandmaster. He actually dared to choose 1,000-year soul beast, the highest-ranked opponent in this examination. The two referees were also shocked. 2 days ago, Hu Yuhao had shocked them. He'd been the first to take the field, and had chosen a soul beast with a cultivation of 100 years. This was a soul beast reared in the great beast dueling arena, yet Hu Yuhao had managed to scare it witless with the aura of 200,000-year soul rings, an event which had stunned everyone present. This time around, Class 1 had sent out someone else, who'd immediately chosen a 1,000-year soul beast. Were these kids really intending to corroborate Shrek Academy's slogan, that they only bred monsters? However, the referee didn't dare to delay the matter any further with Dean Yang Xiaozhe in the audience. Wang Dong, are you ready? I'm ready. Wang Dong nodded with a serious expression on his face as brilliant blue rays of light enveloped him. He didn't waste any time in releasing his martial soul. Even he wasn't sure of himself when it came to confronting a 1,000-year soul beast. Yang Xiaozhe's eyes shone as he sat on the spectator's stand. With a slight nod of his head, he said, "Good. He has 1 yellow soul ring and 2 purple soul rings. This kid's talent and martial soul has far surpassed those of his peers. He's definitely going to be a great asset in the future." However, the radiant butterfly goddess, a hint of a playful smile lifted the corners of his lips when he mentioned that point. Wang Dong's 3rd soul ring was also a purple soul ring, which meant that it was a 1,000-year soul ring. Thus, the soul elder-ranked Wang Dong already had 2,000-year soul rings. These weren't imitation soul rings, but the genuine article. Dai Huabin would never have thought that Wang Dong would give him such a huge surprise. That's right, his cultivation in soul power was truly stronger than Wang Dong's by a large margin. But they were both soul elders wielding 3 soul rings. At this moment, a tyrannical aura seeped out from the open metal gates located some distance away from Wang Dong. A tall figure slowly walked out of the beast pen. Even though it didn't have the speed of that wind spirit wolf Hui Yuhao had fought the last time, the pressure its aura emitted was far superior. The 1,000-year soul beast that Wang Dong was going to face off against was called the bloodthirsty demon bear, a powerful earth-attributed soul beast. Wang Dong spread his wings and took flight the moment he saw his opponent's appearance. However, an enormous formless pressure immediately pushed him down to the ground before he could fly more than 5 meters into the air. The referee's voice rang out in his ear, "You are not allowed to fly more than 5 meters above the ground in this advancement test." The bloodthirsty demon bear didn't appear to be very fast as it slowly walked towards Wang Dong on its hind legs, and with an ominous glint in its eyes. However, the stifling aura that came along with it secretly startled Wang Dong. This was his first time facing a 1,000-year soul beast alone, but nevertheless, he was still confident in his strength. The bloodthirsty demon bear looked a little stupid as it stood up and walked like a human. Not only was it slow, but it was also swaying unstably. However, when it was about 30 meters away from Wang Dong, its front limbs suddenly dropped down. Now, all 4 of its limbs were touching the ground. The sudden change shocked Wang Dong, and he unconsciously stopped in his tracks. He then moved a few meters to the side in anticipation. The bloodthirsty demon bear continued approaching him as though nothing had happened. A mocking expression even seemed to peek through its faint red eyes. When a soul beast reached 1,000 years of cultivation, it would obtain some limited form of intelligence. The instant Wang Dong's guillotine wing grazed its tough fur, a series of sparks flew out along with an ear-piercing screech. Being an earth attribute soul beast, the bloodthirsty demon bear was naturally extremely good at defending. Unfortunately, it had still been a half-beat too slow in responding to the situation. The bear thought that Wang Dong had been duped by the psychological warfare it had used against him. Therefore, the bear had pounced rather abruptly under such circumstances. But now, although it had been able to react in time, Wang Dong had taken a huge chunk of meat from its neck with his guillotine wings. Who didn't know how to wage psychological warfare against their opponent? Wang Dong let out a cold laugh. His attack had hit the mark, but he didn't follow up on it. With a flap of his wings, his body suddenly retreated 5 meters back, dodging the bloodthirsty demon bear's frantic counterattack. Without Hui Yuhao's spiritual detection sharing, he would have gained quite an advantage even if he hadn't been duped by the bear. However, the spiritual detection could help him clearly identify the blood vessels and circulation of soul power within the bloodthirsty demon bear's body, as well as its attack patterns. How could he not utilize this great opportunity? Sure enough, a stunned look crossed the eyes of all the judges sitting in the spectators' stand after witnessing this attack from Wang Dong. Included amongst them were Dean Yang Xiaozhe and director Du Weiluan. Wang Dong had remained calm in the face of the bloodthirsty demon bear's attack, and had even used his opponent's stratagem against him. His calm demeanor as he fought against a 1,000-year soul beast in such close proximity impressed the judges. The judges hadn't even seen such high-level battle tactics from students in higher year groups. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.